Hello to you and welcome to the Soul Sync podcast. I'm Jason Paul and it's lovely to have you here. In this conversation today, I'm speaking to a medium called Nathalie Legrand. And Nathalie is someone that I've known for quite some time. I've came cross paths with her even on a number of courses and watched her work. And there's such a beauty and authenticity to the way that she does her mediumship. So Nathalie's come onto the podcast today to discuss her journey into mediumship and the fact that it wasn't forced, it was much more of an unfolding for her. She also spoke about the fact of how her awareness has developed over time and the importance of experience, trust, and refinement of the connection between us and the spirit world. We covered a lot of ground in this conversation. We also spoke a lot about what mediumship really feels like and about the blend between imagination, feeling, and knowing. And one of the big things that I've experienced we talk about is how the mind can interfere when you overthink or find yourself just trying to place the evidence in your brain rather than just giving to the sitter even what's coming through. We also discussed trust versus doubt, and one of the biggest blocks in mediumship and actually in our lives generally from reaching our full potential is that of self-doubt. The struggle of is it me or is it spirit? The $1 million question that has plagued all of us mediums at some point in their journey, and learning how to trust that first impression and how over-analysis really does weaken the connection between us and the spirit world. We spoke in this conversation in quite some detail about the role of the mind. I've often looked at the mind as the enemy, like it's something that I'm trying to get shut down, but that can actually distort, interrupt, and it kind of makes you question everything. Mediumship, I have found, really works best when the mind is quietness, awareness is expanded. Nathalie also discussed with us the concept of blending and what that actually looks like in practical terms. So this episode is a great one to listen to if you're unfolding your mediumship, if you're wanting to develop your connection with that of the spirit world. And we also discussed as well, which I thought was quite beautiful, sensitivity being a strength. So often we get told as we're growing up in our lives that sensitivity is a problem, and it is something to be proud of and it's something to be embraced, because quite often that's your gift. So we cover a lot of ground. Enjoy. So, Nathalie Legrand, welcome to the Soul Sync podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jason.
Oh, well, it's lovely to have you on, and I'm very glad that we had a little run through how to pronounce your surname in the most nicest way possible. I got to practice a bit of my French accent there, which is very nice because I'm going to Cannes in a few weeks, so I must get the practice in now.
Good. But you're going to what part of Canada?
We're going to Cannes. Do you know what? I wish I could tell you where, but we're not quite in Cannes because it's 10 million.
Canada. You say?
Oh no, Cannes.
South of France. Okay,
yes.
Got you. The big movie thing.
Yes, we're going. Well, I'm going there in an Airbnb with my mum and brother, which should be very nice. So I will practice my French on the run up to that. So you are a lovely human being and a medium, and you are someone I have had the privilege of spending time with and seeing work on courses. So I know we're going to have a really interesting conversation today, because there's lots of things here in the show notes that you kindly wrote down for me, which I just know are things that people listening to this podcast are probably racking their brains with every day. So, you know, to start with you then, I guess, who are you beneath the mediumship, Nathalie?
Well, do you have a few hours in front of you?
Yes, I have all the time in the world.
Okay, it might take a while. Who I am now, I'm just a simple human being having spiritual being having a human experience. And like everyone else going through life struggles and ups and downs. And yeah, I'm just someone who's passionate about mediumship. I always say mediumship is not what I do, it's who I am. And I really have this passion. But beside that, I'm just a regular human being, like every one of us, having the best time of my life on this beautiful planet Earth that we are on at the moment.
It's even quite an interesting statement, isn't it? It's not what I do, it's who I am. And how long did it even take you to get to that level of understanding?
Very long time. That's why I proudly say it now. Now, it took
Yes.
me about, I would say, until I reached a certain age. I would say I've been, owning who I am for the last 15 years only, and really, really 100%. It started slowly, but I'm owning 100% who I am I've been owning it for the last, I would say, 8 to 9 years. Yeah, so it took a while to, remove all the layers, the protective layers that we tend to put on as we grow up, as we evolve in life. And I guess we all do that. Layers of protection. And those layers make us forget who we are. And it takes
It's interesting. Layers of protection. It's, sometimes it's who are we protecting ourselves from? Because sometimes it's you're protecting yourself from actually living your true potential and so on. So you, from what I understand in the show notes, you are French, we've cleared that up already. But you came from a very rational left brain family. So how did kind of mediumship or the spirit world first even come onto your awareness?
It started as long as I can remember, actually. When I was a child, for me, I didn't see really the difference between the living or spirits. For me, it was the same. I remember the first time it was my mom who reminded me of it. One day she came to tuck me in bed, and I told her, well, you know what, grandma is here and she would love to. Your grandma was her grandma, my great grandma. And she said, what are you talking about? And I started to tell her what she was saying. And then she was embarrassed, she didn't know what to do with it. So she said, you should not talk about those things. Time to go to bed, subject closed. So it's been something that's been with me as long as I can remember, except that as I grew up, from a left brain family, I said, okay, I need to stop this because my mom kept on telling me, stop saying that, stop doing this. And so I'm like, okay, if I want to be loved and accepted, I have to to become who they want me to be. So that's where I stopped talking about it. But I never stopped the connection, actually. Never. No.
Was it that do you think your parents believed in it, but they just didn't want you sort of not fitting in, as it were, or do you think it was just it was just like, stop doing that, it's, what are you doing? And there was no belief from them at all?
I don't think they even asked themselves the question, and they didn't even want to ask themselves the questions. When you don't control something, when you're scared of something, the best way to avoid it is to ignore it. If I don't talk about it, it's not there. Isn't it how most people live their life? If I don't pronounce the word, it's just like, if I don't pronounce the word death, it won't happen to me, Some people are like that. And they just didn't want to raise the question, and whether they believed in it or not, they just said, stop talking about it. This is going to make you sound silly. And so I did what they said, but I never stopped the connection, never. They were my secret friends that I was playing with, that I was having fun with, because I always thought that they were funnier and lighter than the true living. They were quite boring or dramatic. I thought the spirit world was much funnier.
Well, it's not hard to be on a higher vibration than people down here, is it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Being ever the optimist, but yes, we are a very dense vibration down here on the earth.
Yes, and we tend to be very dramatic. Jeez,
Oh, especially sometimes, especially my 20s.
Exactly.
I was very dramatic in my 20s.
Yeah, so was I. I became, like a regular teenager, and then I said I don't want to hear them anymore. I don't want to see them because I didn't know how to handle it. So I went through that phase where I tried to shut it down. Actually, to really said if I don't pay attention to it, it will stop. And it worked for a while. Well, yeah, mostly it worked until it came back. It always comes back because it's who you are again. So if you are a medium, because I believe that mediumship is something you're born into. I think everyone has it, obviously, but some have it more than others. It's more intense. It's more pronounced. And I think it always comes back to you. It always catches up with you. Yeah.
So you were having these experiences, you shut it down going through, that particular part of your life. But as you said, it was very difficult to try and do that for you. I sometimes wish to myself I'd kind of had those experiences younger. Spirit was something that I was so adamant that it didn't exist. I went on a search for proof that it did exist. I came at it from a totally different angle, but I was almost looking for reasons. No, it doesn't exist, but it's, my story, I've said it before. My granddad was a medium, but I never took I did take an interest in it, but I never really sort of drilled down, and I was always looking for that sort of one piece of irrefutable evidence that proved existence. And when I did get it, then, that's when it all opened up and whatnot. So when was it that it came back on your radar? Because you put something very interesting in the show notes, which was in 2010, you were, and I'm not going to take the story away from you, I'll let you tell it, but you went on a trip and you had a profound experience. And at this point, you put down that you wasn't truly living who you were. So tell us about that, because that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so I went on to live my regular life. I became a journalist, and I studied journalist. I worked for history books, and like you, I was trying to prove that in my way that what I was feeling did not exist. It was just my imagination, like my mom said, and like everybody said. So I'm like, let me prove it. And so I was really working hard at it, trying to say, okay, I'm no medium. This is just, BS. And then I got sick. I had my children. I got married. I had my 3 children. And each time, the funny thing is that each time I gave birth, my mediumship came back stronger. Interesting, isn't it? Each time, the 6 months to a year after giving birth, it came back stronger. I don't know if it has been studied, but there's something with that. Must be something within it. Anyway, I went on with my life and I ignored my mediumship the best I could. And I got sick when I was around 40 years old. I got sick and suddenly I found myself on this trip in Sedona, Arizona. And I was not feeling well. I decided to go, on a spa day. And in that spa, there was this little, in Sedona, you have all these weirdos, all those that gives you reading and do those things to you, healing, blah, blah. And between massage, you had a little garden when you could rest, when you could walk, and there was one for the woman and one for the man. And I was obviously in the women's section. And as I sat on a bench, at one point, there was a gentleman who came and sat next to me. And he was looking like most of the weirdos in Sedona, with a big beard and all those turquoise necklaces but he had such a gentle smile and a gentle way of looking at me. And he said to me, "You're sick, right?" I said, "Yes." And I started to explain what I had. And he said, "Well, no, it's not what I mean. You're sick because you're ignoring who you are. And that's what makes you sick." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm just..."
You were thinking, oh, for goodness sake, I've got one thing wrong with me. Now you're telling me there's another thing wrong with me.
Exactly. He's sick. So what is that? And so he said, "No, you're sick simply because you are ignoring who you are. And you are at a point where you have to make a choice. Either you keep on going the way you are, like ignoring who you are and pleasing everybody besides yourself, or you decide to endorse who you are, to open up to who you are, to the totality of who you are, to use these gifts that you have to help people out, and then things will change." And I was like, what is he talking about? But there was something with him, such a love, I believe that day I got really touched by spirits. And well, little did I know that he was not there anymore. And so when I went to the reception, I asked the girl, I said, "Who was this gentleman sitting next to me? Because I want a reading with this guy. I want to have a session. I don't know what he's offering, but I want a session with him." He said, "What are you talking about? There's no guy. You were in the women's section." And I would have seen if somebody was going through this. So I will never know, I guess, who this gentleman was. I tend to want to keep my story in, for me, he was like an angel, I don't know, a guide, or appeared just that day for me to put me back on track. But I will never know. Or maybe he was someone who is from there who got lost. I don't know. But I know that after that encounter, I really shifted my mindset and I started to think about what he said. It was like imprinted within me, deep within my soul. Every word, every color he was wearing, everything was really deeply imprinted within me. And after that, life shifted completely for me because I started to ask myself those questions. So why am I doing this to myself? Why am I ignoring who I am? Why do I keep on, swimming against the current? Because that's what I was doing. And that's why I was sick. Everything was a struggle. And I was unhappy, obviously. So everything shifted after that.
It's really interesting. Was you aware of the fact that you wasn't living your own potential? Because it kind of feels like to me, why would you intentionally do that? And this is, I guess it begs the question for me on, so often, so many of us aren't, stepping into our power in one respect or another. And I think some of the time we're not even aware that we're actually doing it because we've become accustomed to looking at life through a certain lens.
We'll be right back.
Hello there, Soul Sink. It's me. I interrupt this episode for just a moment to ask if you find this podcast at all helpful, please leave a review on the platform where you listen to them. It helps other people to find it and it means the world to me. Now enjoy your episode.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wasn't aware of it. So that's why this gentleman came through to me, reached me to show me that I was completely lost. And I had no idea I was lost. I was struggling day by day, but I think it's a question of awareness. And I think that's part of our journey as a medium, as sensitive or healers or whatever is it that you do in this field. I think the discovery of self is the first step if you want to unfold whatever gifts you have. And the discovery of self comes with awareness. Asking yourself the right question, asking yourself every day, do I feel good at the moment? What feels wrong in my life? What feels right? And for me, it's all about contraction and being open. And if everything feels like it's a contraction, like you are, again, swimming against the current, something is wrong. Something is wrong, because if you are really doing or being who you are, everything flows naturally. Everything is just goes naturally with love and peace and serenity. And so I think, but we really need to ask ourselves these questions. And these are simple questions that we can ask.
They are simple. Well, they sound like simple questions, but I think a lot of the time it takes to get to a certain point to really sit down and look at things, especially if you're unhappy. I think a lot of us aren't even honest with ourselves. We don't want to sit down and look in the mirror. We'd rather lie to ourselves and, make out that these things that are happening in our lives are outside of our control and what we're suffering from is bad luck or unfortunate. It's just the world that's causing these problems, or it's my boss last Thursday. He's such an asshole, or whatever it might be. But in all seriousness, it's, I think to myself, well, am I and have I lived in my true power? I think in some areas, absolutely. But I think there's other areas where I still have limiting beliefs that I need to work on, because I sort of know that it is possible. And I've even had the spirit world recently tell me, it's so funny. So I was on a course recently, and it was a prophecy week, and my nan and granddad, they love to come through, and I love them coming through in readings. And my nan said to me, and this had been said a few weeks before, but I'd sort of just discounted it, that apparently a new man is going to come into my life. And my nan proceeded to tell me many times throughout the week what I must do and mustn't do in this situation. Don't scare them away, Jason. Make sure this time you go in calmly. Make sure that, they see the softer sides of you, my Nan. So very lovely advice. Don't know where I'm going with this. But she said to me that, look, you need to look at these things. You need to look at your belief and whatever. So I feel like the spirit world had to come and sort of slap me on the face with that. But, we do go down these rabbit holes in life. So you decided in 2010 to listen to this advice that had come through. You decided to start stepping into your power. What did your mediumship start to look like from then onwards? I imagine it had flow. I imagine it had pace, Nathalie.
No, not from that day.
Oh, okay.
No, I wish. No, it's a journey, right? We all in a journey, and we have to be patient with ourselves and gentle with ourselves, because that's why we're here. We're here to learn and to evolve, and it doesn't happen, overnight. So after that, I started to open up a little bit more, but it still took some time. So I started to work as a medium, obviously, but I was still having doubts. Like, am I creating this? Is this my imagination? Blah, blah, blah. So I started to work with the Akashic records. That's how I started. So that was the beginning of my journey, because I thought, if I work, I can say the Akashic records said it. It was easier than said your aunt or your grandma said it. So I just kind of hid behind the Akashic records, which, by the way, I discovered and became a passion of mine at that time, because I just discovered, I'm an avid reader. I'm an avid learner and reader. And so when I discovered this huge library of knowledges, I was like, oh my God, I just need to sit, to meditate, get up there, ask questions, and I have the answers. It's fascinating. But of course, in the middle of those answers, spirit world was also answering me. But I wasn't trusting myself completely. So I hid behind the Akashic records, showed me the Akashic records said this, instead of saying your grandma said this. But
I can understand. It's almost like it feels to me like when I was hiding behind the tarot cards for ages, because it was easier. Yes, I understand.
You don't take responsibility. If you're wrong, the cards are wrong. The Akashic record is wrong,
It's not me, it's the spread, it's the cards. They haven't been energized correctly.
And it's all coming from a lack of trust, obviously, towards the spirit world and towards myself first and foremost. And then slowly I unfolded. And then when I was doing the reading, suddenly I surprised myself saying a few times, oh, your father is here and he's saying this. And I was like, why did I say that? And I was like, like spirit can push you sometimes to dare say
they
it.
They do, yes.
And then I started to say, okay, I'm not that bad. I mean, it's okay. It's working. And then it's slowly but surely I started to, I'll do the Akashic records and the mediumship in the same reading. And then I started slowly but surely divide the two, said this mediumship reading and Akashic records reading. And then I think everything really did a trust thing, because I needed to work on my trust like we all do. Like mediumship is about trusting the spirit world, yourself. And it really came, I would say, just before COVID or in the middle of COVID, where I started really to sit more. And that's where I really started to unfold. And then the big discovery, as you know, was Eileen, my mentor. Eileen was really, she gave me that trust. She gave me that trust to dare. And everything changed after that. So it wasn't unfolding.
Eileen Davis.
It wasn't unfolding, a slow unfolding.
And it takes a long time, it's very much a journey. It's rather than a destination, isn't it? The Akashic records, because it's going to be, because I've got an understanding of them, but I find them fascinating. How do you understand them, and what do you understand them to be?
Well, for me, the Akashic records is just the invisible intelligence surrounding us all. And we are surrounded by this invisible intelligence, and it covers all subjects, everything beyond our own possible mind and knowledges. And it's just out there. We just need to get there, ask, and it will be given. That's what Jesus said, right? And it's exactly it. It's just ask, and it will be given. Ask the information, and it will be given to you. But obviously, to get there, you need to be able to silence the noises and to, to work with the power, to work with the, because for me to reach it is the same thing, is to get into the power, to get into that zone where your own thoughts are put aside, where your own ego, your own thoughts, you don't really exist anymore. You're just a receptacle for the knowledges to come through. And what I understood about the Akashic Records, doing it for all those years, because it's been a while now, is the more, like with everything in life, the more precise you are in your question and in your intention, the better the response will be. And that is what I needed to learn all those years, because it takes training, like with everything. But that is, for me, the secret of the Akashic Record, to be really precise, to have clarity about what you want to ask and why you want to ask this. And if you have that clarity, the answer would be very, easy to get, and with the same clarity.
Because I've always understood them to be like records in regards to past lives, but I suppose it's like everything in the world is, every bit of knowledge or anything that's been developed or whatever lives within some consciousness. And, it makes sense that we can dip in and dip out. I've never done that, to be honest with you. And you're making me, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, why have I not done that as a thing? I could do with some answers right now. Like, where's my business guide? Like, hello, business guide. Yeah. I could do with some help right now. So let me
finish this. Everything has a record. So every person, every piece of furniture, every house, everything, every shrimp behind you, everything has a record. Everything that is living has a record. So it's just, information about everything.
Without asking, obviously, you can tell us whatever you want, but how would you tend to use them? How have you tended to use them for people to understand, what records are you delving into these days?
Well, I use it. I created my own protocol after years and years. I've been doing this for 15 years. So I've been using and creating my own protocols that I'm still evolving with. And I use it a lot in coaching. I do a lot of coaching, of spiritual coaching, where the goal is to realign the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. Everything, comes from your soul, and you need to realign everything. And once you realign everything, everything is flowing. Everything is easy in your life. And I've been giving those readings for 15 years now in coaching, and it really gives amazing results. I've done more than 15,000. So it's
my goodness, you're up there every 2 minutes.
Not 15,000, sorry, 1,500. So 1,500.
That's still a lot of records.
So I use it to look for each individual that is coming from coaching. I use it to look at what blockages they created in past lives, in this lifetime, what is in their way, why is the same thing happening to them over and over again? And why do they keep on attracting the same guy, the same girl? Why do they seem to, stall in their work and get lost? And it's really, it's about everything. It's about your health. It's about your past lives. It's about your habits, your belief system. So they give me the answer of all that. But I use the Akashic Records. Actually, it's the soul showing me their own Akashic record. So imagine you're my client, your own soul. I'm going to ask your own soul. I'm going to ask Jason's soul. Could you give me all these answers? What is in Jason's way? What is blocking him? What's going on? What happened? And they're going to tell me, okay, 5 past lives ago, Jason made this choice, and he's still working it to this day. He's simply not aware of it. And the minute you're aware of what you are working on, the blockage you're working on, you can shift it. It's just, again, question of awareness. But most people are not aware of what they were doing, like 12 past life ago. Obviously, that's where I come in thing, just to help them a little, to remind them. And the moment you tell them the story of how they created this pattern that they created, 12 past life, but something happens in the body. They just feel it. They feel a shift of energy. And after that day, they just change their choices in life, and things tend to go back to place. So it doesn't happen with one session, but that's really good, nice work.
That's fascinating. I'm sort of sitting here to myself thinking, I wonder what my previous life blockages are. What could have happened? How do this? Because, I started looking into karma more recently and things like that. And, it really surprised me the more I read and learned about how things that can happen, not this life, but, a couple of lives ago, could karmically come back to you, or it could be in some way impacting, like you said, the blockage. But that's just fascinating. Most people wouldn't even realize that was, a thing. What have you, without, telling people stories here, have you come across particular examples of things that really surprised you as a result of going into these over the years?
Well, I cannot talk about my clients, obviously, but I know that I can talk about me. For example, I had a pattern that was, until few years back, to be always of service to others. But I was not being of service. I was serving others. So I want each time somebody was coming saying, what can I do for you? And I'm like, why do I keep on doing this? This is ridiculous. I was exhausted by the end of the day, serving everyone. And then I looked, like 15, 16 years ago, I started to look into it. And I understood that for several past lives, that was my job. And it was ingrained within me, within my soul. And my soul came like trying to get rid of this and tell me, no, you don't. You have to be of service, but not in service. Is it correct English, what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
Serving, you are off service. That's the difference. And I started to work with that. Then after I got this information in the Akashic, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to work with it now. And I'm going to change my choices. Because at the end of the day, it always comes back to your choices. You are the leader of your life. You decide, you are the one who decides what you want to do. And I started to really slowly shift this pattern. And now I don't even, well, of course, if you come to my house, I'm going to ask you if you want to drink something. I'm not going to run behind you.
But you won't be running around pluffing my cushions up and fanning me with a nice banana leaf and some grapes on the side.
No more. So see, that's a little example. Another example can be, some people have a fear of flying or a fear of driving.
Yes.
I have a person who couldn't take the highways. She was obsessed about getting on a highway. So it was terrible for her life because she was taking all the small roads. She would never take a highway. And she couldn't understand where it was coming from. She tried PNL, she tried all those, regular therapy. Nothing worked. So she got to me and we understood that something happened two lives before this one, that on the highway. And it was the minute she got it, her soul said, okay, she changed it. It's, things like that.
Fascinating. That's fascinating. I think my mum needs to come to you. She'll never go on a motorway. And actually, I don't think I want any encouragement. No, she won't. She won't. But she's only passed her test about 2 years ago. I was her driving instructor, actually.
Funny, I bring this story.
Yes, well, she won't go on the motorway now, but to be quite honest with you, I was following behind her only yesterday. She said, will you follow behind me back home so you can tell me how I'm doing? And I said, you keep going near the Central Reserve. You need to get more in the centre. So I don't think she needs any encouragement at the moment to be on the motorway, but maybe soon. So you said and I think this is another really valuable point, especially to people listening to this podcast, starting to perhaps open their mediumship, sit for spirit. But, and I've come to know this, that mediumship is very much a journey of healing. And, I think developing mediumship, there's nothing like it. If you want to find out, what areas of yourself you need to work on, start developing mediumship because it will show you instantly. But, how does mediumship, in your view, actually help someone to heal, from your experiences?
From my experience, but proving the survival of the soul beyond the physical death is what is the best way you can heal someone. Because once you understand that, what's the worst that can happen in life? Death. Hello. I mean, even death is an illusion. There's not real death. Nothing, can happen that can be terrible. Losing a loved one is terrible, but you'll see them again. You know what I mean? So it's once you understand that death is just an illusion, I mean, you have healed most of your problems. Because what else can you prove? I mean, and that's what we do as medium, evidential medium, is proving every day the survival of the soul, through the evidences that we bring through from their loved ones in the other side. And so that's what I would say.
It's very empowering. It's, when I finally, I have to sometimes stop and reflect on this myself and think that, all that, and it is a massive thing, the biggest thing that when you tie or look at a lot of people's life, it's death, fuels all sorts of crazy behavior because, if you, this was a big thing for me. It was for years, I couldn't really understand what was the purpose of life. You sort of, build up to get to a certain point. And, I managed to do that. Then I thought, well, what the bloody hell is the purpose of all of this? What am I doing this all for? If one day I'm just going to pop me clogs and that's it, done. I wouldn't say that I'm not scared of death anymore, but I am not wanting to. In some days, actually, I must say, I do sometimes think, it seems like it's so much easier up there. Just think, I could go to New York perhaps instantly, no problems, down on Fifth Avenue on a Monday when it's sunny. But I wanted to ask you, because one of the biggest things I think that I've struggled with, and it was in your show notes, is about trust and being able to trust the spirit world. And and just trust in general is such a big one in mediumship. And, I even think now, where am I with my mediumship? Well, I am trusting. I'm very trusting, but then I'm still in that stage where I can get thrown off because I get in my head, I'm trying, that creates friction, or, I get a bit of evidence, ding, up there to the brain it goes, rather than it just coming through. And I was actually speaking to my brother about this last night, because I said one of the strongest pieces of evidence my dad could ever bring through, if he wanted to bring this through, would be I walked into his back about 12 years old with a hot chocolate in Boston Airport, and he was furious, absolutely furious. And I would said, if he brought through a medium hot chocolate in back, that would be such strong evidence, because you would know.
I'm not anymore, because you said it.
I told you, yes.
Just knew it. I will certainly not bring this evidence to you, because I'm like, if I bring this evidence, you're going to say I made it up. So
yes, perhaps that wasn't the best thing to announce on the Soul Sync, but it would be great, because it would show the medium was so out the way, because even the evidence in itself doesn't sound logical. So it would be coming through. But, how did you, because it's a long journey, trust, what does that word mean to you in mediumship?
Before I answer this question that I love, I want just to bounce back on what you said earlier. What's the point of being alive? Is just the point of being alive this lifetime is to have this amazing experience. And that's how we should take it, as an experience, as having fun, make the most of what we have here. So that's what I want to say before moving on to the trust subject. The trust subject, to get to trust, you need to trust yourself first. And to get to trust yourself first, you need to know yourself. We're going back to this awareness, to work on yourself. I believe that the only way to become a good medium is to work on yourself. And it's a lifetime work, obviously. But going back to this awareness, if you work on yourself, if you get to know yourself, every part of yourself, the shadow parts of you, everything, then slowly but surely you're going to start to trust yourself. And then if you trust yourself, you're going to trust the spirit world. And I will say that the minute you trust the spirit world, everything is unfolding in your mediumship. For me, that was the biggest shift in my mediumship. Is the minute I trusted them before me. And then one day Eileen told me years ago, she said, well, Nathalie, doesn't make sense. You trust them and you don't trust you. So you mean that they shouldn't trust you neither? I said, no. And then I changed the way I, which was such a good remark. Like Eileen knows how to do them. And so it's just working on yourself is the best way to start to trust yourself. Know yourself first. Spend years knowing yourself. And I'm really surprised nowadays, especially, and I'm sure you have witnessed it at AFC. Now you have young people they spend 1 week at AFC, they come out, they're a medium. Bum.
Yes.
this is insane. I mean, I've been doing this it's like you. We've been training for how many years, working on ourselves, going through the hardships of life, but you have to go through shit. I'm sorry, to, experience life, to get through out of it. And I'm so surprised. You see, now they spend 1 week at AFC. They come out, I'm a great medium. I'm like, no, you need to work on yourself. It's not about practice. It's about practicing with yourself.
Yes, you do see it, and I think it's encouraged in this world that we live in now, in the fast-paced world of people just wanting to learn instantly, and it does take a long time. And even with myself now, I have moments where I think to myself, give me my day job any day, and I'd go to do a reading sometimes, and I'll get all nervous, and I think, what the hell are you doing? Why are you getting like that? And then it does go back to, you do have to, it's funny what you say, you make light of it, but you do have to trust yourself before, even getting to the point of the spirit world. And, I remember times when I would go to do a reading, and I know I had got to do one in a few minutes, and I'd think, right, come on, charge up, try to get the spirit world. I need as much power as possible. Please be there for me. Help me to get out the way, all the usual lines. And then sit there and I'm in some sort of state of tenseness, and well, it's never going to happen then, is it? And you need to learn to get out the way. But that is difficult, because in any other area of our lives, we have this illusion that we want to be in control, and to trust is difficult. But trust, I think the journey of trust, I think it takes time, because first of all, you need to believe, and then I think it comes to knowing, and then you reach this other sort of stage of evolution where you do get there. But I don't think I'm someone that gives trust away easily. Maybe that's an issue I've got in other areas of my life, but to the spirit world, it doesn't come along easily, Nathalie. It's something that's taken time. But you need to sit, don't you? That's one of the key things. Sitting regularly.
Sitting regularly, this is key. I sit twice a day. I love it. For me, it's as important as drinking and eating. I love to sit. It's just, my moments with myself, with spirit, with all there is. And one thing that really helped me with the trust, building my trust, is trance. Actually, trance is really, it was a pivotal for me moment when I discovered trance, because trance is my passion. I love trance. And it changed everything, because you really have to learn to surrender in trance. And that's because without surrendering in trance is nothing. And it's like, you are training yourself with trance to become a better medium, because as you surrender more and more, you trust more and more, and you witness things that are said through my trance. I could not possibly say this myself, because I'm not smart enough.
I think you are.
Yeah, I think that's how you start to trust, because you say, if they talk to me through me like this, it means that my only job to be a good medium is to get out of the way, as you said. And I found lately that to help me get out of the way is to find joy, lots of joy in each reading, to be excited about meeting spirit. I'm like, who am I going to meet this time? Who is it going to be? What story am I going to, unfold over there? And if you turn your anxiousness into joy, into excitement, who am I going to meet? You're going to meet someone to have a coffee with. You're going to be excited, right? Except if it's someone you know and you don't like. But in this case of spirit, it can only be someone you don't know. So it's like a new discovery. And I always say I'm excited for each person I'm meeting on the other side. And I cannot wait for the day that I will have to meet them in person, if I can say this.
You can. I think it's going to be, it's like, I can only imagine what it might be like, a big gathering and a big welcoming coming home.
Imagine the number of friends you're making on the other side. It's exciting.
I know. And do you know what? It's when I think about it, even when my dad was unwell, I could feel the amount of energy in that room with him. And I thought, he's having some sort of welcome party. I can feel it in the room, the vibration of it. But I could understand trance, and it's something that I do want to do more of, trance, because like you say, it just doesn't happen. If you haven't fully surrendered, you're not going to bring through anything. And do you know one thing that made me laugh actually was on a week recently, because I remember the first time I did trance and I sat there and I started speaking, and I remember Eileen in her most beautiful way said to me, she said, "Oh, sometimes it's more authentic, if you not to talk when it isn't really." And I was watching someone else do it, and I thought I was doing trance, and now I realised no, that wasn't trance at all. That was just some kind of subconscious speaking. But I could totally understand, having done a bit of trance, why it excels the the mental mediumship tenfold. But I want to do more of it, because it's firstly just such a beautiful energy to sit in, isn't it?
Yeah, and Eileen is so good. She's the only one I learned it with, and the only one I would ever learn trance with, because she's just, well, if I start with Eileen, I will never stop. She's my...
I know all you're doing
all
now is
us.
making it, but you'll never get on one of her weeks again now, because we just keep talking about how great the lovely Eileen Davis is. But she is. She's great at trance. And if you want to get on this year's trance week, you'll find that you can't at all, because everyone's booked
Yeah,
it.
so I stopped talking about it. I stopped talking about it. I want my stuff.
I know. We're just fully promoting it, but it is a great week. So I guess to sort of bring us to a close then, a lot of people listen to this podcast who are trying to develop their mediumship. What advice, single bit of advice, takeaway, do you want people to walk away from today? Or a bit of advice that you'd like to give people in regards to their development?
I would say, again, start with yourself. Start to know yourself. Sit with yourself. Get to know yourself, sit in the power. That's the first step, and get a good mentor. Get a good mentor that you're going to learn, because this is the basic. It's like a pyramid, like with everything. If you don't have a strong base, you're going to burn yourself very quickly. And you really need a strong base. And to get a strong base, you need to know yourself, to take the time to know yourself, to sit regularly. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen through years and years of practice, of discovering yourself. And that's the way you're going to become a great medium. But But my definition of a great medium is helping out the most as you can. That's my definition of a great medium. For me, being a great medium is not the number of people you do. It's not how much you make. Because if you want to be rich, don't be a medium, because that's not the right profession. But to be a great medium is to be of service, to really bring healing to people, to really help them out and make a difference in their life, to make them understand that there's no such thing as death, and that love is the bridge to everything. And you need to be that person as a medium. If you don't understand love, yourself, gentleness, and gratitude, and all those things, you're in the wrong profession. I think it's so work on these traits, work on yourself, sit, and just become aware of the energy around you, because that's the energy you're going to work with. If you're not aware of the invisible world, which the energy around you, you will never be able to work with the spirit world. So you get to know where your energy stops, your physical energy stops, and where the psychic energy, the spiritual energy starts. And to do that, you need to sit with yourself for a long time to understand it. So. And I know a lot of medium. It's funny because it's a conversation I had with another medium a few days ago, and she was referring to someone who never sit in the power. And I'm like, how do they do that if they never sit in the power? And this person said, and that's where I understood the difference. The energy was flat.
Yes.
When you're in the presence of someone who sits in the power, the energy is high.
And they emanate the power. You can feel it, can't you, in the way they
exactly
talk and communicate, even in the voice, the vibration.
Exactly. And you have someone who never sits. Yeah, they're going to give some evidence, but it's going to be flat, straight, not long after they give a few evidences. And it's so that's the advice I would give, is just to get to know yourself, get to know the energy around you, get to work with the energy, and please keep on these positive energy like gratitude and gentleness and all those traits alive. And
in the words of Eileen Davis, just focus on the feeling of love. I love it when she says that.
She's so right. And, I discovered it with her because before her, I went to another mentor, and it was she was very nice and everything, but it was more competitive mediumship.
Yes.
And it was, and she was great. Actually, I'm going to consider him. I worked with Mavis Pitila before until Mavis passed away, then went to Eileen. And when I worked with Mavis, who was great, she's a great medium, amazing medium. So, and she taught me so much too. But with Mavis, it was more, we were not talking about the love effect. And it works for each person has a different energy they react to. And for me, and Mavis was great, except that for me, I needed this love factor that I was missing and that I found with Eileen. And the day I had this love factor, the gentleness and the love factor, everything changed. I'm competitive, but not in mediumship. I would never be competitive in mediumship because I believe that each medium is different and each medium is bringing something that another medium cannot bring. So we're all unique, and we're all unique in the way we practice mediumship. And so there should never be a competition. There should never be a comparison when it comes to mediumship, because it's killing your mediumship. If you compare yourself to somebody else, missing, you don't trust you. You don't trust your unique way of working. And I think you should never compare yourself. Never.
No, I think comparing yourself is very limiting. And I've done it a lot in my life. I've been a salesperson for God knows how long. And I'm, always comparing myself to the next person on the league table, especially these days, to a young whippersnapper. And I think to myself, look at me, nearly 40, still going.
And I love your style, by the way, when you work. I love your style because you're exactly the same when you work as a medium than when you talk like that. And I think that you have this lively persona because that's you, that's your uniqueness. And I think that's what, makes you a great medium too, is this you. We should always be the same.
I think I only come on volume level 10. No, I think I'm only made for loud rooms, for rooms with a certain...
You need a big crowd. That's for sure, because you can reach the bottom.
Yes, I can. I don't come in quiet mode. I think I only come in loud mode. But do you know what? It's been a blast. Nathalie, thank you so much for coming on to the Soul Sync. And if you do want to find out more about Nathalie Legrand and all of her fascinating, lovely work, you can go to our website, go in the show notes. But thank you for coming on to this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.